I would say the big thing here is that you need to avoid mischaracterizing the buyer broker agreement, as well as the requirement for entering a buyer broker agreement before touring a home. First, if you're asked by a buyer why they're being asked to sign a buyer broker agreement, you should remember that it is not presently a true legal requirement. As of the date of recording this video, Oklahoma's Broker Relationship Act says that licensees must disclose to their clients information regarding compensation and fees, and this disclosure must occur before the effective date of the real estate contract. That's currently the law in Oklahoma. So, while it's possible the legislature will formally require a buyer broker agreement in the future, it has not done so yet. All this to say, when you're talking with a prospective client about the need for a buyer broker agreement, do not tell them that it's legally required to represent them. Instead, you should let them know that it's an NAR and MLS requirement that's intended to make sure that they, as consumers, are informed regarding the transaction and how the broker's compensation is structured. Another thing to be aware of is the need to be accurate when it comes to the need for signing a buyer broker agreement. Here's how I like to think about this. The requirement to use a buyer broker agreement has a condition and it has a deadline. If the condition is met, then the buyer broker agreement must be signed before the deadline. So what's that condition? Well, the condition is that the broker must be working with a buyer. Per NAR's guidance, it appears that working with a buyer includes identifying potential properties, arranging for the buyer to tour a property, facilitating negotiations on behalf of the buyer, presenting offers by the buyer, etc. The takeaway here is that if you're doing any of these activities, you're probably working with that buyer, and this then triggers the deadline for entering a buyer broker agreement. Under the practice changes, the deadline for entering a buyer broker agreement is when that buyer tours a home. NAR's guidance on this issue indicates that touring a home occurs when the buyer and or the buyer's agent enter a home at the direction of the buyer's agent. Now that we understand this requirement, we can see where pitfalls come into play. Take open houses, for example. If a listing agent is holding an open house, they cannot require unrepresented buyers to sign a buyer broker agreement before touring the property. Why is that? Well, the listing agent doesn't satisfy the condition. The listing agent is working for the seller at an open house. If he has no prior relationship with that unrepresented buyer, then he's clearly not working with that buyer. As a result, the condition is not satisfied and a buyer broker agreement is not required before allowing access to that property.